There is a reason the question is not where did Axl Rose go? The real question is why he chose to vanish when the world begged him to stay. Behind the most volatile voice in rock was a man raised on discipline and distrust, who arrived in Los Angeles with nothing but a new name and a refusal to bend. This is a story about authenticity and the price of keeping it. The answer to what really happened to Axl Rose is not found in collapse or scandal. It is found in the quiet cost of fighting for authorship in an industry that rewards surrender. He did not disappear because he could not cope. He withdrew because he would not trade integrity for visibility. This is where that story begins. William Bruce Rose Jr. was born in Lafayette, Indiana in 1962 into a childhood already marked by fracture. His father vanished before he was old enough to remember him, leaving a shadow that never quite faded. When his mother remarried, the boy became William Bruce Bailey and entered a home shaped by his stepfather's Pentecostal faith. The boundaries were strict, music was policed, pleasure was suspect, and any sign of rebellion was met with discipline. Singing in the church choir offered a rare escape, a place where his voice could stretch further than the rules allowed. By the time he reached high school, the tension between confinement and expression had already shaped him. He learned to move between roles, obedient son, troublemaker, choir boy, never quite fitting any of them. At 17, a stack of insurance papers revealed a secret. His real surname was Rose, not Bailey. The discovery landed like a second rupture, a private crisis of identity. From that point on, he signed his name W. Rose, drawing a line between himself and the world that tried to define him. The need to control his own story took root early. Arrests, clashes with authority, and nights spent in holding cells became part of the pattern. Each act of defiance was a small claim of authorship, a refusal to accept the version of himself handed down by others. Even as a teenager in Indiana, Axl Rose was already practicing the art of boundary enforcement, protecting the fragile sense of self that would one day become his armor and sometimes his cage. Los Angeles in late 1982 was a city of opportunity and indifference. Axl Rose arrived with little more than a suitcase and a need to escape the expectations he had left behind in Indiana. He drifted through cheap apartments and odd jobs, working nights as a manager at Tower Records and taking part in paid medical studies. He never stayed in one place long enough to get comfortable. The city was crowded with hopefuls, but Axl's path was never about fitting in. It was about finding a space he could shape. Within months, he met Kevin Lawrence outside the Troubadour and joined Rapid Fire, recording a demo at Telstar Studios. The arrangement did not last. When compromise threatened his vision, he left, moving on to LA Guns, then Hollywood Rose with Izzy Stradlin, a friend from Lafayette who understood the value of loyalty over convenience. Each band was a brief alliance, a test of whether control could coexist with collaboration. By early 1985, the answer was clear. Comfort was expendable, but agency was not. Hollywood Rose merged with LA Guns, and the lineup shifted almost weekly. Musicians came and went, Tracy I. Guns, Rob Gardner, Ola Baich, until by June of 1985 the core had taken shape. Axl, Izzy, Slash, Duff McKagan, Steven Adler. The city favored polish, but this group was built on friction. Every decision, from song selection to rehearsal schedules, was a negotiation. Axl's insistence on steering the process was not about ego, it was a survival instinct sharpened by years of instability. In the chaos of the Los Angeles scene, control was the only comfort he allowed himself. The band that would become Guns N' Roses was less a family than a barricade, and Axl was determined to keep the door locked from the inside. The late 1980s belonged to spectacle, but Guns N' Roses carved out something sharper. Where glam metal bands offered fantasy and polish, this group brought menace. On stage, Axl Rose moved like a man both hunted and hunting. Appetite for Destruction did not just top the charts, it detonated them, selling more than 30 million copies and becoming the best-selling debut album in United States history. The band's success was inseparable from a sense of danger. Each show felt like it could veer off the rails at any moment, and sometimes it did. In July 1991, the Use Your Illusion tour stopped at Riverport Amphitheater near St. Louis. That night, a single camera in the crowd triggered a fracture. Axl, frustrated by security's inaction, leapt from the stage to seize the camera himself. The band left abruptly. Within minutes, the arena descended into chaos. Chairs were thrown, barricades were torn down, and $200,000 in damages were left behind. The city banned Guns N' Roses from performing for 2 years. Moments like these did not just feed the band's reputation. They exposed the strain of living inside the spotlight. Every riot, every headline, every sold-out stadium magnified the tension between control and collapse. As the crowds grew, so did the pressure to command not just the music, but the entire environment. For Axl, the stage became less a platform and more a battleground. The world's attention was relentless, and the cost of holding the center grew heavier with every show. Slash walked away in October of 1996. The partnership that once held Guns N' Roses together unraveled, replaced by a series of departures that left the band's future in question. Matt Sorum was dismissed in June of 1997 after a disagreement about new guitarist Paul Tobias. By August of 1997, Duff McKagan, the last of the classic lineup, had also quit. The band that once thrived on creative friction now existed as a shell, with only Axl Rose and keyboardist Dizzy Reed remaining from the Use Your Illusion era. What followed was not chaos, but a methodical tightening of boundaries. In 1997, Axl secured full legal control of the Guns N' Roses name, restructuring the band's ownership into a new partnership. Former bandmates described ultimatums and legal maneuvering, but Axl saw it as an act of preservation, a way to protect the work from dilution or compromise. The name became less a banner for brotherhood and more a locked gate. With each exit, collaboration gave way to solitary authorship. The silence that followed was not absence, but a deliberate retreat behind walls of his own making. By the late 1990s, the music industry no longer waited for artists to catch up. The rise of grunge and alternative rock swept away the patience that once allowed for eccentricity and delay. Record labels, now shaped by corporate mergers and falling sales, demanded faster albums, constant visibility, and a willingness to play by new rules. For Axl Rose, this was not a world to adapt to. It was a world to step back from. As the industry accelerated, he withdrew further, refusing to release material on anyone's timeline but his own. Media cycles spun faster, hungry for quick stories and accessible stars. Axl answered with silence. Years passed without interviews, albums, or even public sightings. He became a rumor, a name attached to projects that never arrived. In January 2001, he surfaced for a single show at the House of Blues in Las Vegas, a brief return, and then quiet again. The absence was not collapse. It was a deliberate response, a choice to protect a pace and a set of values that the industry no longer matched. The world moved on, and Axl Rose did not follow. 14 years after the world last heard a new Guns N' Roses album, Chinese Democracy arrived in November 2008. The project had sprawled across more than a decade, passing through at least 15 studios and countless lineups. Its budget soared past $13 million, making it one of the most expensive albums ever produced. For Axl Rose, this was not indulgence or drift. It was the final assertion of authorship. Every note, every lyric, every mix was filtered through his vision, often at the cost of time, goodwill, and industry patience. The world had changed around him, but he held his ground, even as silence hardened into myth. When the album finally reached listeners, it was less a return than a statement. Control had been won, but at a price only he seemed willing to pay. 8 years later, the Not in This Lifetime tour brought Axl, Slash, and Duff McKagan back to stadiums. The reunion grossed hundreds of millions, not as a revival, but as proof that endurance on your own terms can outlast even the longest absence. Today, the music world moves faster than ever, demanding compromise and rewarding adaptation. Axl Rose stands as a reminder that sometimes holding your ground outlasts every trend. He refused to vanish on anyone else's terms, showing that silence can echo longer than applause. Thank you for watching.